Now this is the thematic solution 2, led by ILO. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you to this second thematic solution forum of the Global South-South Development Expo 2018. It is a pleasure for me to be the moderator of this second thematic forum, and my name is Ree Weiss-Kjeldgaard. I am with the ILO. I'm the director of our Department for Partnership and Field Support. And it is a pleasure, a real special pleasure for me to have the panelists with us that we have. We are very proud of having representation of experiences that the ILO have been involved in from not less than 3 regions. We have an experience, first of all, from the Manu River Fragile to Fragile Corporation. We have an experience of SITS Corporation and Climate Resilience in the Pacific, and a regional also initiative in Latin America and the Caribbean, free of child labor. And we also have an experience on social protection from South Africa. What brings our panelists together, I will come to in a short while, but let me just say that our panelists have flown from very far destinations into New York, and I really want to thank you all for having taken that journey and for being with us here. You can understand that coming from as far as Pacific into New York was quite a journey, and our panelists nevertheless have arrived recently, still under jet lag and also with the welcoming harsh wind of New York. Still, you're here. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate. We are also very happy that these panelists are with us so we can share what we would like to call the voice of the real life of doing a South-South corporation experience. And that is the voice that we want to bring into the Expo for us all to learn from and listen to. And I'm, of course, very happy that we have also achieved gender balance, and we are asking one of our panelists to accept that he is a minority. But now, as I said, I'm with the ILO, and I want to just start with a bit of context setting before we are listening to our panelists. Not more than a few weeks back, many world leaders met in Paris in commemoration of the 100 years since the First World War was brought to an end. And when the peace was finalized and agreed, the world leaders at that time had not a shred of doubt that the importance of social justice to lasting peace is a core issue, and it's a center piece for any development. So at that time, that was the pleasure for the ILO to be formed. It was formed exactly for that reason, because social justice and having decent work is at the core of lasting peace. And that is exactly our contribution also to the implementation of the SDGs. Social Justice Declaration with a focus on decent work agenda is the ILO's contribution to how we actually also implement the SDGs with our member states. And that means in very general terms, the basic philosophy is that everybody needs to have a job, and those that would not be able to work or have a job would need to have income security. And this needs to happen in a context of respect of rights, some fundamental principles and rights, and of course in dialogue, that the real economy players, the industry, the private sector, and also those working together with the governments do need to have dialogue in order to develop the policies that allow exactly decent work to happen. And it's in this context that we have the experiences in the panel today. And it's really speaking to how do we then facilitate that good jobs are created, and how do we ensure that it is good jobs, not with child labor, so fundamental rights at work are essential. And if this is not happening, how do we then also secure social protection? So really our experiences through the panelists' stories are speaking to the 4 strategic objectives of the Decent Work Agenda. Now, with no further delay, I would want to go into sharing these experiences for our panelists. The way we have decided to organize ourselves is that each of the panelists will first answer a key question that I have posed, and that is, what in your experience, what have you done and what have been the key lessons learned for South-South cooperation? And then you will hear from our 4 panelists. We will then have another round of a question, and after that, I hope very much there will be time for an interaction with you as well. So my very first speaker today is Mr. Lyndon Chu Ling. As I said, he has just flown in from Samoa. He is currently the Chief Executive Officer, the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and also Labor. He has a very extensive experience and insight to the work of the trade, commerce and also the manufacturing sector, I think more than 20 years. And he also has a lot of governance positions and holds a number of national positions focusing on enabling environment, especially for business innovation and also for how to generate more employment opportunities. He is the chairman of the Samoa National Tripartite Forum, the Apprentice Council, and the Samoa National Employment Policy, and I believe also the co-chair of Trade and Commerce and Manufacturing Steering Committee, among other things. So we are extremely pleased that you are here with us today, Mr. Chu Ling, and that you will share your experience. So again, my question, what did you actually do and what would be your key lessons learned on South-South cooperation, please?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, on behalf of the Government of Samoa, let me convey our sincere and heartfelt appreciations to the UN, South-South and Triangular Cooperation, the International Labour Organization, development partners, and all the organizers for making possible the participation of Samoa at this very prestigious Expo and event. In response to the topic as raised, I confirm that Samoa and many other Pacific Island countries is highly sensitive to climate variability and weather extremes such as tsunamis, tropical cyclones, sea level rising, increased coastal flooding and erosion. And as you are aware, the Pacific Island region countries are commonly also referred to as Big Ocean States, BOC. Thus, in facing these new and complex challenges from the effects of climate change, is the motivating factor in fostering the South-South and Triangular Cooperation approach to initiating collaborative solutions that are home-based, homegrown, and relevant to Pacific Island countries in promoting sustainable development with the focus on improving decent work and climate resilience. These efforts also contribute to the achievement of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, in particular SDG 8 on decent work, SDG 13 on climate change, and SDG 17 on partnerships. At the national level, Samoa, along with her neighboring states, is in support of the South-South cooperation efforts to translate global goals at the national level to make a significant difference to improving decent work and natural disaster preparedness, not only for Samoa, but all Pacific Island countries. Most importantly, the government of Samoa strives to have effective and lasting impacts through establishing genuine South-South partnerships at all levels. That includes the involvement of the communities at the national level, regional, international, bilateral, and the multilateral international organizations. I would also like to emphasize that capacity building is also emphasized, as this is imperative to support national development strategies to effectively implement SDGs, including South-South cooperation at the regional level. Some examples, as you are probably aware of, includes the SEEDS accelerated modalities of action, the Samoa pathway, in which Samoa and all the seat states are continuing to pursue different strategies under similar and same principles to ensure that we reach and would benefit our people as a whole. We also would like to confirm the strong leadership in the Pacific region that looks at encouraging the development of a regional roadmap for the Pacific Island countries to follow and to support other existing modalities as mentioned earlier. Integration of decent work agenda and SDGs into national development strategies. For example, the strategy for the development of Samoa 2017-2020 is aligned to the principles of SDGs and others. I would also like to draw your attention to some specific examples from our country. For example, the Vaisingano catchment project, which is it's progressing at the moment. The development of the water banks to protect the communities from flooding. That has also offered some business opportunities for SMEs, and especially the communities that are based on the coastal area of that river, to start small businesses to cater for the more than 300 workers who will be currently employed under that project. And just last month, the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Labour, in partnership with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment and the International Labour Organization, signed an MOU to assist and to ensure that there will be continued partnership in the development of the Vaisingano River catchment. It's very unusual for Ministry of Commerce to work with Ministry of Environment. However, we are proud to confirm that last month that MOU was signed with support from all parties concerned. Another important development that has been in existence in our country includes the effective and collaborative National Tripartite Forum, which, as you are aware, comprised of 3 constituents: the employers, employees, and the government. I'm proud also to state that we have a very effective National Tripartite Forum that works collaboratively to ensure that policies are created not only for equal opportunities for everybody, but as one of the important priorities in our Decent Work Country Program 2017-2020 includes the climate change. And we are all working towards ensuring that activities and policies that we formulate will lead to the achievement of that priority, and amongst others. Relatively, a knowledge-sharing dialogue on just transition, decent work, and climate resilience was held in Apia from the 7th to the 9th of November last month. And a total of 19 Pacific Island countries participated in this very important forum. The countries I think it's important that we are aware of includes Cook Islands, Fiji, Kiribati, Palau, Papua New Guinea, Republic of the Marshall Islands, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Tonga, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu. One of the worst case scenarios experienced by some of these countries is the relocation of their communities or islands. And the social impact of relocation, apart from the impact of climate change, is a more painful experience for these people. Most of them stated that this is the last resort for them and that they will do all that they can do to leave their communities, and this will mean a loss to their identity. Therefore, they are willing to do everything possible to save their islands. The forum in Apia was a stepping stone to sharing experiences on how to alleviate common challenges, thus contributing to SDG Goal 17, Partnership for Goals. The new report, prepared by the UN Environment Programme and the Secretary of the Pacific Regional Environment Programme, SPREP, calls for action to be taken in the region to enforce environmental legislation. It also calls for improvement in the availability of environmental data and the strengthening of environmental institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, those are just a few given the time constraint that I have, but I would be very happy to discuss with you on an individual basis as we progress the other initiatives that we have developed as a country, which includes the Samoa National Employment Policy, as well as others, which all caters towards the fact that there is need to be a balance to ensure that there will be employment opportunities for our people, both at gender and also other different opportunities, not only within our country, but we are also developing partnerships with other closer by Pacific Island countries in terms of seasonal work and other opportunities that comes up for the benefit of our country. Thank you. I think I'd better stop there, Madam Moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tuling. Thank you for this important experience, not only for Samoa, but also, as you said, the 19 economies around Samoa, so the Pacifics, and how you have collaboratively really found a roadmap for the national level, but also regional level. Thank you very much. And I would like to now turn to our second experience that will be shared with us all from Latin America, Caribbean, I would say, but specifically it's Miss SASHA Dear Gordon, who is the director of the Child Labor Unit, Ministry of Labor and Social Security in Jamaica. And she is extremely comprehensive experience also with the ministry, like our previous panelists. I believe you have a very substantive experience with the ministry, not only in your current position as the director of the Child Labor Unit, but also including on monitoring and measuring of work and planning in general. You have also been very active in the regional project we have from Latin America and the Caribbean on free child labor, where you have also, I believe, used South-South cooperation extensively. So we really look forward to hearing your experience. And again, the question is, what did you actually do, and what would be the key good practices to take away, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Moderator. My fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good afternoon. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be here. I want to thank the sponsors for putting this together and for the Caribbean to be represented here in terms of giving a voice to what it is that we have been doing with the assistance of from the South-South Corporation. Since 2016 to present, we have received several initiatives have been undertaken through the Brazilian South-South Corporation. I'll just mention a few of them, given the time constraint. Rapid assessments on child labor, that was done in 4 countries: Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, the Bahamas, and St. Lucia. Site visits were also conducted with companies and institutions participating in Brazil's apprenticeship programs in Fortaleza, Brazil, by 10 Caribbean officials. That was on with the child labor focal points and representatives of ministries of education from the various countries. 5 national seminars on school-to-work transition for the elimination of child labor, and 8 multi-stakeholder discussions in St. Lucia, the Bahamas, Guyana, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago, and also Grenada. And this particular was geared with, if you recognize, well, it's closely linked to the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which is quality education targets. Labor inspection training with respect to agriculture and child labor. This was held in Porto Alegre last year. 3 colleagues from Jamaica attended. I was one of those persons. And I must say, when we visit, we were pleasantly surprised at what we saw, and we can understand why the ILO has used Brazil as a best practice model. We visited a number of schools. It was very structured. They had theater, so you had drama, and you also had musical. There's also agriculture. And when we visited and we spoke with the children, the interaction, you can see that they really loved what it is that they were doing. They enjoyed what they were doing. And it promotes the whole decent work agenda. Because although they're adolescents, we're training them, we're transitioning them for the world of work. So when we saw what was actually happening, we were really in amazement. Translation and dissemination of information and legal and operational aspects of Brazil's labor inspection and apprenticeship systems. Technical expertise from Brazil Ministry of Labor for national training of trainers on child labor inspection. This was held in Jamaica earlier this year, July 2nd to the 6th. And we also had representatives from Guyana and the Bahamas who participated. Technical assistance for development of national child labor inspection training materials, and this is currently being done. We already have the drafts for both Guyana and Jamaica. Now, we had all these assistance through the South-South Corporation, but I want to enlighten you on some of the main results that we actually saw. We got updated information on the situation of child labor in the Caribbean countries, available and accessible, including documentation of challenges and gaps in national legislation, strategy, policies, and institutions to address the issue, and stakeholder recommendations on necessary interventions and steps for implementation. Because I'm sure, as you know, going in anything that you're doing, you really need to have data. It has to be evidence-based in order for you to develop proper policies and programs to put in place to address whatever situation, well, in this case, child labor. The creation of new and direct channels of communication between national officials of labor and also Ministry of Education, and among national focal points on officials of the Brazilian Corporation, ABC, and the ILO. Renewed interest and active participation of Caribbean member countries in the focal points network and activities of the regional initiative, contributing to increased sub-regional advocacy and political commitment. And I must say, prior to October, we had 8 countries being a part of the regional initiative. Since the regional meeting of the Americas in Panama held in October, it's 2 other Caribbean countries have signed on, so we're now at 10. So it feels good that the numbers are growing, because it means that whatever it is that is being done, it's out there. Persons are actually seeing and want to get on board. As I mentioned earlier, with respect to the training for labor inspectors held in Jamaica, approximately 35 participants participated in that training, and from Jamaica, Guyana, and the Bahamas, trained to provide national level training on child labor and labor inspection. This specific activity came about when we visited Brazil last year, Porto Alegre. And from the discussions, we realized that in Brazil, they had a pool of labor inspectors. That pool of labor inspectors, whenever they go out to do various inspections, they would not just focus on their area. They would focus on all areas. So in that respect, child labor, any suspected case of child labor would have been identified and then reported to the Ministry of Labor. In Jamaica, this is something that we had thought of, but we were not sure how we were going to go about doing that. So this training helped. We have included, apart from our labor inspectors, we have included our occupational safety and health officers, or social workers, or national insurance scheme inspectors, and some other officers, frontline officers. We have included them in the training because we want them to be aware of, whenever they are going out there, what are some of the things that they need to be looking for. So this training was targeted to that specific group. And from that training, a manual has been developed, a training manual in Guyana and Jamaica, and that will be instituted in short order. Given my time, I think I've exceeded my 5 minutes. But I just want to let you know that I'm available for any additional discussion, information that you may need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dia-Gordon. Again, a very clear experience of how South-South is literally contributing to the results that the country wants to deliver on. So thank you very much for sharing this. I would like to now share the third experience we have, and that's again on how to create jobs and the importance of employment opportunities. And I would like to introduce our third speaker, and that is Ms. NYAIBOR, that is with us from the Manu project, and you are the Senior Program Officer of the Manu River Union program. You have considerable experience, I believe, both in health, gender, and capacity building, not least with the Manu River Union Secretariat, but you have worked with this also extensively prior to that. And you have a lot of experience also working with community development and women empowerment, and of course, livelihood promotion. So I would like you to share with us the experience you have on enhancing the Sierra Leone women entrepreneurs' empowerment and resilience in cross-border trade with the Manu River Union. So please, the floor is yours, Ms. NGOMBU.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My fellow panelists, guests, good afternoon. The project Enhancing Sierra Leone Women Entrepreneurs' Empowerment and Resilience in Cross-Border Trade within the Manu River Union through learning and experience sharing from East African community was born out of the fact that the women entrepreneurs in the Manu River Union are facing several challenges, among which are low literacy levels, very limited access to markets, and the rough terrains that they go along with, and very little knowledge of actually the customs and immigration procedures that they should know. So in view of this, in collaboration with the ILO, the Manu River Union conducted a study tour of cross-border women entrepreneurs to the EAC, the East African community, by recognizing the fact that the East African community has a more structured approach to cross-border trade. So enhancing this study tour was the main South-South cooperation activity that happened. The women were so enthused on both sides, the cross-border women in Arusha and the women from the Manu River Union from the 4 fragile states of Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, and Cote d'Ivoire. And coupled with the fact that the women in 3 of the countries in Manu River Union were really affected by the Ebola. It actually grounded most of them, and they needed to find a way to start. So the study tour actually brought to fore the tool that the EACI were using, and it was based on that advice that they also, the women of the Manu River Union, decided to adapt the tool to the context of the Manu River Union. So as I speak, a situational analysis is going on to see how this tool can be adapted, because this tool actually highlights the customs, the custom tariffs, the immigration laws and procedures, what it actually takes to go across the border, because they are really not too knowledgeable on this, and they need it. So the ILO has actually supported this venture with the women entrepreneurs in connection with the joint border union, the joint border units of the Manu River Union. The joint border units have been established by the Manu River Union as a way of confidence building. Since the war and the Ebola struck, states were not too comfortable with each other. So these units have been established to actually build confidence and trust among each other, so share experiences and share ideas as to how really things should move to develop the sub-region. The key experiences that have been learned really, the women are now beginning to gain a little bit of confidence since the study tour, and they are asking more and more for the tools to be adapted. So it's really interesting that they really want it to happen now. But after this institutional analysis is done, by next week, the validation should be done. And they are also going to be part of the validation to see how it can be triangulated. And this has also created a linkage between the East Africa Women in Business platform with the Manoa River Union, and they have started talking about ways of formalizing trade between the two regional communities. The three key issues that are brought to fore in this initiative are fragility, because all the member states of the Manoa River Union are fragile states, and mobility. They share a large border between them, and women cross these borders all the time, and regional integration. Sharing these three issues, looking at them, I think it will really enhance the entrepreneurs if these are looked at. Do I go to the recommendations? Oh, not yet, okay. All right, okay, basically, those are the key issues from this initiative.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ngombu, thank you. And I think, again, there is a very clear pattern across the panelist experience, again, how the exchange of experience and the South-South cooperation really enhances the work, the development efforts that they have spoken for. We have had three experiences that spoke very much to creating jobs, to creating livelihoods and opportunities for sustaining yourself. And of course, the child labor experience is in a sense that, but saying that it's not any job and certainly not for kids. So that's the point, that children should be in schools, not working. The fourth experience is completing that tour by saying what can we do and how can we use South-South cooperation also to promote the work that we do in social protection. And I would like to introduce our fourth experience and our fourth panelist, Ms. PORTIA KEKANA, who has been working specifically on social protection in South Africa, and we're very happy that you are also here. Ms. KEKANA, you are yourself very experienced, both trainer and community development facilitator, and you have been involved, I believe, with the Department of Education for quite some time. And you have worked both on development planning, on training and facilitation in private-public sector, and of course working with community development. So please share with us your experience of the Transform Social Protection experience in South Africa.
Madam Moderator, thank you so much. Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, and ladies and gentlemen, let me just express my heartfelt gratitude for both the privilege and the honor of having been invited to this particular platform to share experiences not around South African social protection per se, but to really share insights about what I consider to be an apex flagship program of the ILO, which Transform initiative is. So this is an initiative that actually has been developed for the sub-Saharan region, more than one country within the continent. So Transform is a social protection leadership transformation learning package, and it came about as a response to address a number of challenges, among which are the low social protection coverage in the sub-Sahara. Some of you would actually know that only about 10% of the economically active people are covered by statutory social security schemes in the region. Not only that, a recent study by ISA, which is based in Geneva within the ILO, has also revealed that only 9 in 10 people in the region actually 9 out of 10 people in the region have absolutely no basic social protection coverage. And I think that is a very sobering statistic. Secondly, we have to contend lack of African-specific in-service learning in social protection, despite Africa's unique context and its rich experience vis-à-vis social protection. Now, the number of social protection trainers in Africa is very low, which means that most training is often offered outside the region, and it comes in very costly, but also it actually lacks the depth and the experience that can only be offered by African practitioners because they are at the coalface and they know what the actual issues are. Now, these and many other challenges in social protection are very concerning, considering that social protection is paramount to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and in particular for its potential to deliver on the promise of leaving no one behind. The next question will probably be, why transform as a tool? Now, transform is not only about building knowledge infrastructure within the region, but it also encourages learners to take leadership on the change and transformation of nationally defined social protection systems. The program is actually a very indispensable tool to strengthen African governments' capacities to improve their social protection systems. And this is achieved through South-to-South cooperation and peer learning between experts within the continent. Who are the main beneficiaries of this particular intervention called Transform? This package has been made available to social protection practitioners at national and sub-national level, and it includes a full set of modular and adaptable materials for trainers as well as learners, for tailor-made learnings, either through face-to-face applications or online applications. This also generates a South-to-South network of trainers and experts. As a matter of fact, as we're sitting here, there is an application that is currently taking place in Mozambique, a face-to-face application, which is done in Portuguese. The material have been even adapted and translated into Portuguese. We are exceedingly proud of that particular milestone. In October 2017, we had a training of trainers held in Zambia. 23 trainers participated, and I'm one of those. We are a very good mixture of representation from government, from academia, the private sector, as well as UN agencies. The countries that were represented there were Zimbabwe, South Africa, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Malawi, Kenya, Zambia, Mozambique, Lesotho, Ghana, and Mauritius. At this present moment, efforts are also underway to adapt and tailor-make the content of the curriculum to other regions in the West, in Northern Africa, as well as in Asia. And we are quite excited about the fact that even Asians have found it very beneficial to come onto the bandwagon and adapt this kind of a provision for their own purposes. I would like to just speak briefly about some of the achievements and impacts of this particular program, given the fact that it is actually still in its infancy. Transform has already registered a number of impressive statistics, even so early in its existence. For instance, more than 250 practitioners from 5 different countries in Southern and Eastern Africa have participated in the face-to-face training workshops between 2017 and 18, so we're only talking a 1-year period. There have also been 2 runs of the e-course, which were successfully completed. In the first run, we had 47 participants from 26 countries and 5 continents. And in the second run, we had 49 participants from 27 countries and 4 continents. I'm also happy to announce that we also had a UNICEF-run blended course in which Ethiopian UNICEF staff was trained, and that was completed very successfully with 28 participants. Also to note, esteemed guests, is that altogether we had 124 participants from 40 countries and 5 continents who were trained using this particular application. The third run is also about to commence, and it will be offered as well to almost 30 participants. Just quickly, if I could just speak to the SDGs, some of the SDGs that we are actually trying to address using Transform is, amongst others, the SDG number 1 with target 1.3, issues around poverty eradication and implementation of nationally appropriate social protection systems. SDG 3, talking to healthy lives and promoting the well-being and speaking specifically to universal health coverage because it is a social protection issue. There is also SDG 5, which talks to gender equality, issues around value of unpaid care and domestic work, very important. We speak to SDG 8 around decent work and economic growth, productive employment for all women and equal pay for work of equal value. Lastly, SDG number 10, that speaks to the reduction of inequality. So we're saying that we're using and adapting SP policies to progressively achieve greater equalities within the workspace and within the social context of nations. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam KEKANA. Thank you very much. Before we open the floor, I have another question for our panelists, so please allow for another round. And I want to ask this key question to the 4 of them. In view of the fact that we are preparing for the BAPA+40, so the key question that I'm asking is basically, what would be their key recommendation for us to take to BAPA+40 in March next year? So again, I would ask each of you to have 2 minutes where you share your key recommendations. And may I ask you, Mr. Chuling, to be the first on this? Thank you.
Thank you again, Madam Moderator. I think I wanted also to share one of the outcomes of the dialogue that was held in Apia last month. All the participants were, as part of the activity for the meeting, were required to plant trees at Robert Louis Stevenson Botanical Garden. And the formula, I mean, each participant has a different number of trees based on the miles that they have traveled. So under the gas emission strategy. So the calculation was done and each was allocated a number of trees based on how far you have come to Samoa to participate. So the head of delegation from ILO planted more than 20 trees because he came all the way from Thailand. And more than 200 trees were planted on the last day of the meeting in Apia. And again, the Ministry of Commerce and the Ministry of Environment are now jointly looking after that botanical garden. I think those are simple things, but it does have a strong message that needs to be shared amongst all member states of the importance of working together. And lastly, an important outcome for that meeting includes the outcomes document as well as an action plan that was discussed, developed, and endorsed during the meeting before everybody left Apia last month. So the action plan has been submitted formally to the International Labour Organization office, highlighting some of the shared experiences and also some of the activities that the Pacific Island countries or big ocean states are now recommending for ongoing. And some of these, in summary, of that action plan includes the need for ILO to continue to facilitate the establishment of knowledge-sharing platforms, either a separate new platform or added to an existing program. Also, for member states to nominate proposed themes to work with their countries in order to contribute to their regional priorities. Also, member states and ILO to determine a suitable host and theme for a second dialogue. So it's proposing an ongoing approach, not just a one-off. There is a need for us to ensure that there is continuation in these dialogues and these platforms of sharing information, because information also stays and new development comes up now and then. And so we need to continue this in close partnership with our development partners and all international organizations. And also for the International Labour Organization to consider developing a Pacific Island-focused assessment of green jobs and the connection between climate change and the future of work. I think this is also applicable to all regions, but I'm just making reference here to the outcome of our dialogue. But I think this should be common interest to all of us to ensure that we do this sort of assessment and to check, to stock take where we are and what we need to be done in moving forward. And also for all Pacific Island countries to consider caps in collecting employment data associated with climate change and also related projects. I think the absence of data is a challenge in almost all small island countries. And there's a need to ensure that there is updated information available to us to assist the policymakers in making sound policies. Because we all know and understand that policies that are made from assumptions or, will not be workable for us. And sometimes it will be damaging. It will have a reverse impact instead of a positive one. And also we have sort of nominated one of the most affected Pacific Island countries in terms of climate change, which is Kiribati, who is already experiencing high sea rising, and people are now relocating inland and now looking at strategies of moving to other countries to host the next dialogue, because it's good for us to see the actual impact. I mean, we have been talking of it during our dialogue, and we all have different, although common, experiences. But it's good to actually see what's happening and what's taking place and why those people are singing that song. Why are those small island countries continuing to sing that song? We all need to see it and to give that support and also to prepare ourselves for things to come. And also we want to continue the knowledge sharing with all in terms of good practices and lessons between Pacific Island countries, together with China, Korea, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, and ILO and all other international organizations in terms of climate change and decent work programs. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tuling. Thank you. Very practical and very real strategic recommendations for the BAPA+40. May I turn to you, Ms. Sasha Dear-Gordon, for your recommendation for going ahead, please?
Thanks again, Moderator. At the very root of any successful development, intervention for positive and lasting change is effective and efficient communication among stakeholders. The principles of South-South cooperation, combined with the rapid evolution of global communication and more complex interpersonal interactions in the current global context, are already dismantling some of the traditional norms and protocols in international relations among state and various non-state actors. One impact of this is a shift in the Global South actors' perceptions and understanding of their ability to generate and innovate appropriate responses and solutions to meet their development needs, and to better mobilize and deploy existing national technical and financial resources to creatively support these actions. Although they are global in nature, achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals cannot be accomplished through one-size-fits-all solutions. The South-South cooperation approaches should therefore be used by development partners to allow for even greater capture and systemization of good practices that are most appropriate and relevant to particular regions and countries, based on similarities or synergies in their economic, social, and other contexts. To ensure that this is done consistently, the targets of Sustainable Development Goal 17, which speaks to global partnerships, must be incorporated as integral metrics in the evaluations of every other SDG. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Dear-Gordon. Again, some very clear recommendations for going ahead and for BAPA+40. Thank you very much. And if I may also ask you, Ms. NGOMBU, for your recommendations for going ahead, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I have only two recommendations. The first one is to include fragile to fragile cooperation into all development cooperation approaches, giving it a gender perspective, and to address fragility in a more pragmatic and committed stepwise manner with the view of not leaving anyone behind.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gumbu. Also, very strategic, clear recommendations. Thank you. Ms. KEKANA, also your recommendations, please.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think I would want to just point out that we have come to appreciate the pivotal importance of South-to-South and triangular cooperation in exchanging best practice and building new knowledge infrastructure. And it is on the basis of that my recommendations would be as follows. That the first one would be that one of the concrete outcomes that would be to use the experience of transform curriculum to further contribute to ILO's flagship program of building social protection floors for all. And then, Madam Moderator, I think as an international community, it would be well for us to just be alive to both the opportunities that are brought about by instruments like Transform, as well as the potential capacity they possess to really transform the socio-economic landscape of the deprived and developing countries of the South in particular. They do that in ensuring that no one truly does not get left behind. And that we probably need to have to intentionally and deliberately leverage these kinds of tools for the betterment of the world in general. Thirdly, I would like to probably propose that BAPA+40 consider to utilize various platforms that it has at its disposal to highlight the programs and successes of the caliber of Transform and the necessity of having such programs in contributing to the SDGs. And last but not least, to urge all member states from the Global South to seriously consider the package like Transform for capacity building and knowledge sharing for their respective social protection practitioners, given that it is exceedingly important that they do get assisted with the tools that they so much require in order to tend the social protection landscape of their respective countries around. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. KEKANA. Thank you. That leaves us still with some time for interactions with the floor. I hope you have heard a very clear contribution, both in terms of action, real examples in reality, how to make South-South work, the importance of creating employment opportunities and livelihood opportunities, and also with social protection to actually and concretely ensure that no one is left behind. The floor is open. When you take the floor, please introduce yourself and ask your question or offer your comment in a rather succinct manner, please, so we can allow most for asking. Yes, and I will just start from behind the room, please. I see a lady in the second row at the back, and then after we will move forward. And please, then I see a third. We will take 3 to 5 interventions and then a round of responses. So please, you start here and then we move it forward. Yeah.
It's me, right? Okay. Just congratulate the panelists. My name is Luara Lopes. I'm from a CSO based in Brazil, dedicated to South-South cooperation. I listened to your very interesting intervention, Ms. Dear Gordon, on the project that you had with the Brazilian experience on the decent labor agenda. But now I'm thinking that this could be true, have been true 5 to 10 years ago, but now we are in a very different reality, not only in Brazil, but everywhere. I think South-South cooperation doesn't operate in a vacuum, and we are, so maybe we should approach this reality and think about how South-South cooperation can survive in a realm of a retreat of multilateralism, and I'm talking about my country specifically, and this newly elected president and his foreign policy agenda. But even, I mean, more specifically regarding the decent labor agenda, we have had many setbacks in the past 5 to 10 years, including the assassination of labor inspectors and the lobby of agribusiness to have a looser legislation on decent labor. So we have had these major setbacks on our side. So I was just wondering if South-South cooperation can sometimes have this boomerang effect of going abroad and making and validating these experiences abroad, and then coming back to the original country where these experiences and social policies are sometimes at risk.
Thank you very much for that question. I believe we then moved, there was a gentleman Okay, then there is, yes. Please raise your hands. I can't, so I can keep track of. There's a gentleman there on, here on my right. Please.
My name is Elder Da Costa. I'm from the G7+ Secretariat. My question is addressed to Ms. NYAIBOR from Sierra Leone. I'm interested in the concept that you just mentioned about the fragile to fragile cooperation as a subset of South-South cooperation. I just wanted to ask you to elaborate a little bit more. What value added can the F2F cooperation bring to the wider South-South development cooperation, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did I see some other hands? There's one here. Yeah. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Ministry of Budget and National Plan in Nigeria. I just want to make some clarification because it is interesting to see that International Labour Organization is actually passionate about using SASHA cooperation to promote a decent job. In my country, Nigeria, we have a policy program now that is ongoing, which is social protection policy. And that social protection policy focuses on youth employment, vulnerable group, and some other social intervention that can reduce poverty, that can reduce but here we are that we just, like, I'm interested in ILO. I actually work with all UN agencies in Nigeria, and I want to see how the country offices can be encouraged to also project SASHA cooperation in their program delivery in developing countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. And do we have other questions before we are moving into some feedback? In that case, I'm going to ask, let's start maybe with you, SASHA, on the first question, and then I'll pass the floor to you, Ms. Gumba, for also addressing the question. Please.
Thanks again, Madam Moderator. For the question posed, the example I gave was based on what I saw, my experience. With respect to Jamaica, we have apprenticeship programs, but apprenticeship programs are done in different pockets. So you have different organizations doing their own thing. So when we went to Brazil and we saw where a structured thing was in place, and we saw where they focused not just on one particular type of job, it was a range. It was from music, drama, to agriculture, as I mentioned, to cosmetology. The structure of it was so much that, I mean, as I said, the children, they enjoyed what they were doing. And there is this quote, if you love the work that you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And when I hear those children, how they related in terms of what they were doing, the team from Jamaica, we were very much impressed. So that was what I was alluding to with respect to what we saw there.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Gomba, would you like to also, there was a question from Mr. De Costa in terms of fragility, its value adding, and then also the social protection policies maybe from with your Nigeria, yeah? Okay, I can do that.
For the fragile to fragile cooperation, the value that is added from the G7 Intergovernmental Association of Countries, from a meeting, it draws up solidarity and support for each other in transition to resilience and also for the next steps to development. That's the key value that is added in this context.
Thank you very much. I don't want to put you on the spot, Mr. Chuling, but I'm imagining that also resilience, it's similar to prepare for the preparedness and resilience is linked to the fragile to fragile issue. So if you have any comments, I definitely would like to pass the floor to you, but you're not obliged. But there may be some issues that are very similar, and from my point of view, to fragility from the preparedness and resilience issue.
I think I agree with you, Madam Chair. It's a good combination of those two terms. Not only resilience, but also our preparedness to, I mean, based on our experience, we have experienced more than two devastating cyclones, a tsunami, and recently flooding, which almost destroyed a newly built five-star hotel in the town area, the one that I mentioned this morning on the Vaisingano River catchment project. And I think based on those experiences, the government of Samoa and all the stakeholders are now working towards doing all that is possible to ensure that we will be able to respond. So one of the response now is the development of that wall on both banks of the river, and also trying to educate and provide awareness to our people who are based on those who have been living there most of their lives, more than 2 generations now, to move inland. And it's very difficult, and we are having, I mean, apart from efforts to be prepared, there are also other problems coming up because of those strategies. Those families are hesitant to relocate. They prefer to stay, but but it's good to have that understanding, not only the environmental climate change issue, but also the social impact of the policies that we make, and make sure we strike the balance to avoid ongoing problems and challenges.
Thank you very much. And to our colleague for Nigeria, let me take the liberty of answering on behalf of the ILO that we would be very delighted to work on these things. The South-South and South-South triangular cooperation in the ILO is as old as we are, so it's absolutely a full commitment, and we are discussing it even in our board, and we have a particular strategy for it. So we continue to be highly dedicated for it, and we will work with you through our office in Abuja and in the region, our regional office. For sure, we would really want to be part of a UN initiative on this important topic. There would be time for another 1 or 2 questions if some would like to take the floor. And if not, I would ask you to please say a huge thank you to our panelists. And I thank you very much for your attention. And I really am appreciating that we have this discussion, and we will continue also in BAPA+40. So thank you very much to the panelists.